There was a time when debt wasn't debated. It wasn't analyzed. It wasn't optimized. It was avoided. Not because people were smarter, not because money was easier, but because debt felt heavy. Not mathematically, emotionally. If someone owed money, it meant something had gone wrong. Debt was associated with failure, miscalculation, or desperation. You didn't casually mention loans. You didn't normalize them in conversation. You certainly didn't plan your lifestyle around them. Money had a physical presence. You counted it. You held it. You watched it leave your hands. That moment mattered. Because when money left your hand, your brain registered loss. There was friction. Time passed between wanting something and actually buying it. And in that time, doubt entered. Do I really need this? Can this wait? Is this worth giving up something else? That pause protected people, not from poverty, but from overcommitment. Debt in that world was loud. It reminded you that your future income had already been promised away, so people respected it. They feared it, and because they feared it, they used it sparingly. In earlier systems, money had limits, not artificial limits, real ones. You couldn't spend what you didn't have, and if you did, the consequences were immediate. Missed payments weren't abstract. They were personal. Someone knew you owed them, and you knew it too. Debt wasn't invisible. It didn't hide inside statements, apps, or notifications. It sat in your mind. This is important to understand. Debt wasn't rare, but it was serious. People borrowed for emergencies, for survival, for moments when there was no other option, not for comfort, not for convenience, not for upgrades. And because borrowing carried emotional cost, people calculated more carefully. This wasn't discipline, it was design. The system itself made debt uncomfortable, and discomfort created restraint. The change didn't begin with shopping malls. It didn't begin with credit cards. It began with language. Debt slowly stopped being described as something risky and started being described as something necessary. The first area where this happened was education. Borrowing for education was framed differently. This wasn't bad debt. This was an investment in yourself. You weren't falling behind. You were preparing. You'll earn more later. This will pay for itself. Everyone does it. And it made sense. Education genuinely did increase earning potential, at least at the time. So the idea of good debt was born. That phrase changed everything, because once debt could be good, it could also be justified. Then came housing. Buying a home outright became unrealistic for most people. Prices rose faster than wages. Cities expanded. Demand increased. Mortgages weren't optional anymore. They became expected. Owning a home was no longer about shelter. It became about stability, status, responsibility. If you didn't have a mortgage, you weren't safe, you weren't settled, and once again, debt was reframed. This wasn't borrowing. This was building a future. Language matters more than numbers. When debt was called progress, people stopped questioning it. Still, at this stage, debt had boundaries. You borrowed for education, housing, emergencies, not for lifestyle, not for comfort. That line still existed. For a while, up until this point, debt still felt like debt. You knew how much you owed. You knew it mattered. Then one change quietly rewired everything. Prices stopped being presented as totals. They were broken into monthly pieces. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't just marketing. It was a psychological shift. Because the human brain doesn't evaluate cost. It evaluates pain. A large number creates resistance. A small recurring number creates acceptance. A $2,000 purchase triggers hesitation. A $60 monthly payment feels manageable. Same cost, different perception. This is where debt stopped being a decision and started becoming a default. You no longer chose debt. You slid into it. Another subtle change happened alongside this. Ownership stopped being the goal. Access became enough. You didn't need to own something fully. You just needed access to it. Phones, cars, homes, even software. Everything moved toward recurring payments, subscriptions, leases, installments. This did two things at once. First, it lowered entry barriers. Second, it removed finality. You were never done paying, but you were always using. Debt stopped feeling temporary. It became ambient, something that existed in the background without demanding attention. And because it didn't demand attention, it didn't trigger fear. None of this felt dangerous. In fact, it felt liberating. People had access to better things sooner. Technology improved. Life became more convenient. Waiting felt unnecessary. Saving felt slow. Why delay life when you could experience it now? This is where the emotional trade-off happened. Short-term comfort replaced long-term caution, and the system rewarded that behavior, not directly, but consistently. Faster approvals, lower upfront costs, rewards for spending. The message was subtle but clear. Participation mattered more than restraint. As debt spread into everyday purchases, it lost its emotional signal. No one announced it. No one voted for it. It just happened. Debt no longer felt like something you entered. It felt like something you managed. That distinction matters. When something needs managing, it's already assumed to be permanent. You don't manage emergencies, you escape them. But you manage routines. Debt had quietly become routine. Monthly payments created a powerful illusion. As long as you could pay, everything felt fine. The total amount no longer mattered. Only the next due date did. This narrowed time horizons. People stopped thinking in years. They started thinking in cycles. Next month, next bill, next payment. The future became segmented. And when the future is segmented, it's easier to commit it away. Because you never face it all at once. At this stage, something fundamental had shifted. People didn't feel reckless. They felt responsible. They weren't overspending. They were budgeting. They weren't in debt. They were managing cash flow. The language protected the behavior, and behavior shapes outcomes long before awareness catches up. Debt didn't feel like a trap. It felt like adulthood. Once debt entered everyday life, it stopped being questioned. Children grew up watching it. They inherited it as normal. By the time they entered adulthood, debt wasn't a warning sign. It was a starting point. This is where normalization completed its cycle. Not through force, not through crisis, but through familiarity. And once something becomes familiar, it becomes invisible. So this is how debt became normal. Not through force, not through crisis, but through comfort. People didn't suddenly become irresponsible. The system simply made debt feel harmless. Small payments, easy approvals, no immediate pain. And once something doesn't hurt, we stop questioning it. That's why today most people aren't asking, should I borrow? They're asking, how much per month? And that single question quietly decides their future. Debt didn't trap people overnight. It blended into everyday life until it felt normal. And once something feels normal, it becomes invisible. If this video helped you see money differently, and you want to understand these systems before they quietly shape your life, subscribe to Money Unmasked. More clarity, less noise,